the shifter cable. Now it should sit in a little receiver in there just under tension. As you can see, it is dangling freely. So in an effort to maintain the cognitive dissonance that I'm exhibiting towards solving this issue, I'm going to turn my attention towards the cargo bike. Now recently I fitted a new chain to it and it required a lot of jigging around with cables and adjusting things. Thought all was well, but I'm now having issues with the shifter cable. Now it should sit in a little receiver in there just under tension. As you can see, it is dangling freely and the cable is actually quite mangled at this point. It was like that from the previous owner. I've tried to work around it, but it keeps popping out every time I shift down into first gear. So I'm just going to go ahead and start fiddling with this Nexus shifter, and I think it's just time to recable it. So it should be pretty straightforward, as it's not that different to a regular bike from here to here. But who knows what sort of drama this will entail. We'll get into it. So one of the biggest headaches when working on a Nexus hub is trying to get this receiver to rotate around in order to put the cable in. So you do is you take a 2mm Allen key and there's this little port here. So you pop it into that port and that'll allow you to actually rotate it around. Now, it does have a bit of a safety stop or a service stop. Kind of wouldn't really trust it because sometimes it will flick back, which can give you a bit of a jump scare. So I would normally just keep the tool in it so it's nice and happy. And then from there, what you can do is you can pop the cable into position and get it under tension, etc., before then slowly releasing this back because you're controlling the rotation. So this is the shifter cable. This is a bolt-on kind of clamp that sits then in a receiver on the hub, and it just sits there under tension. It isn't affixed to it in any real way. Now you can see it's all a bit mangled. This used to be all frayed. I managed to get it tucked into a cable end, but as I've had to move the wheel back and therefore the axle and had to let tension out of it, I think it's these bends that are actually causing me the issue, and they're stopping this from sitting happily in its receiver. So we'll change out this cable and hopefully that will alleviate the problem. Get a snippy snip. We can remove that last piece of it, you can see there, and we'll keep all of those bits together. So on to the next thing that I don't really know how it works. There's a little screw here, so I'm going to undo this in an effort to remove the top section of the shifter, and perhaps the cable goes in that way. We shall soon see. Definitely don't want to lose this screw either. Okay, cool. So super straightforward setup. You can see here we have the end of the cable. It just passes around this kind of cam and then straight in. So we should be able to flick that out and just hopefully thread a new cable in, and hopefully it will spit out the far end. Okay, so the cable has been freed up and then we can just remove it from the shifter. So take it and go for a walk. So while the shifter is all naked, I'm going to hit it with a little bit of this WD-40 silicone, because I think that will help keep things running nice and smoothly for many years to come. Get a decent amount in there. I'll give it some weatherproofing as well, not that we ever really encounter much weather. Okay, we pass in our new cable and push it all the way through. And the cable has passed happily at the other end, so we can just get it seated into the shifter and then we can get this clamped on, and hopefully we'll be back to a fully functioning hub. So one thing with a Nexus hub, when you check a service manual that's extremely specific, is this. You have to have exactly from the end of this kind of cable housing to where you actually place the kind of clamp stop has to be 101 millimeters. They make a point of that in the service manual, so I think it's probably best that I get out a Sharpie and mark this and not eyeball it, because I don't think my eyes are that great, considering they barely work at the best of times. So yeah, we'll get the Sharpie out. So I know it's going to be nigh on impossible for you to see this on camera, but it is all marked up and I can just about see it in the sunshine. So I'll just pass this on, and my marking is here. And then next thing that goes on is this kind of spacer slash clamp, and then we pop on the nut, and I can tell from the wear indicator or the marking that it sits in this orientation, and then we can get that all tightened up and reseated. I definitely want to get the orientation of this right. I don't want it twisting. I don't want to end up back in the same position we just came from. Okay, so the cable should all be ready to go back in. I'm having to work around a tripod. If I pass that through, it should then sit quite happily into its receiver, like so. Now I'll put a little bit more tension on this to make sure it's truly steady, but that's how easy that can be when it's done right. Fingers crossed.
1 week later.
I'm happy to report that pretty much everything is working almost perfectly. There's maybe a little bit of inaccuracy between gears second and third, but can't complain really, given didn't exactly follow the instructions to the letter of the law. But he's happy, I'm happy, and we're going to go for a celebratory beer. I will eventually get around to fine-tuning this and seeing if we can make it just that little bit better, but for the most part it's working perfectly well for what I need it for. So cheers to that.